What's up YouTube, it's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another episode of the NBA Preview. Now for people out there who missed the last episode because it was the Los Angeles Lakers, if you want to catch up, there will always be an annotation in the top right hand corner, links in the description, and if you watch the video in its entirety, not only will there be an annotation for the last episode, but also all the episodes of the NBA Preview so you can catch up. However, in today's video, we're going to talk about the Charlotte Hornets, which more than likely they will not finish as high as I have them just because of an unfortunate event that happened over the last 24 hours. But with that being said, a quick overview. The Charlotte Hornets over the last couple of seasons have been trying to bounce back from their Bobcat days. They switched head coach, bringing in Steve Clifford, and ever since then they've been a defensive-minded unit and one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. And luckily for them, last year they grew a little bit more as Kemba Walker received his first All-Star selection, so everything was on the up and up. And actually, quite honestly, I thought the Dwight Howard transaction was going to work out in their favor. However, like I kind of hinted to, because of a situation that just happened, like literally over the last 24 hours, things have drastically changed for this organization, which leads us to our summer of social media.
Early on, scary moment, Nick Batum injures his elbow, listed as a sprain. He did not return to the game.
So as you probably guessed, this is not a good thing for anybody. One, my list is completely screwed, so there's that. Two, the organization is missing out on a very versatile player. Not to say that Nicolas Batum is a star of any sorts, but because of his ability to rebound, handle the ball, and still being a consistent 15-point scorer, taking that out of the roster is going to be a huge hit for the team, especially when we take the time out to look at the depth chart, and you'll start to realize why it's a huge hit for the organization. But also a big reason why this is going to be huge for the organization moving forward is because even though, yes, there's been some updates, and yes, people have said that he's only going to miss 8 to 12 weeks, not the entire season, this is an organization that needs every moment of quality play within the next year or two because of the situation with Kemba Walker and his contract, and because of the injury that Nicolas Batum suffered. I would make the argument, if I were the Charlotte Hornets, that that might actually be the last speed bump that I would want to try to overcome when it comes to the Kemba Walker era and just trade him away. But before we get that far ahead of ourselves, let's take the time out and look at this depth chart and these contracts, and so you get a better understanding of where I'm coming from. Now, when it comes to the new signings for this organization, nothing really big here outside of a Michael Carter-Williams one-year deal, a backup point guard, serviceable and pretty good signing, especially for the organization. But with that being said, they actually did make a pretty big transaction, which was the Dwight Howard trade from Atlanta. They pick up Dwight Howard, they gave up a Plumlee and a Marco Bellinelli along with a second-round pick, so not too much they gave up, but they picked up Dwight Howard, which a lot of people are kind of iffy on, which then moves us on to our overpaid players, which happen to be Dwight Howard and Nicolas Batum. Dwight Howard receiving $20+ million at this stage of his career, especially because of his injuries, and unfortunately, even in Atlanta, there's multiple people claiming that he was a quote-unquote cancer in the locker room. So I don't necessarily know how that's going to work out this year. And then when it comes to Nicolas Batum, he too is making over $20+ million. I like Nicolas Batum. He's a very underrated player in my opinion, especially because of his versatility. But him receiving $20+ million a season to me seems a bit excessive, regardless of how versatile he is. And then when it comes to our expiring contracts, which is something that's really concerning, they have no expiring contracts outside of the Michael Carter-Williams one-year deal that they just signed. The reason why this is really concerning is because if you want to actually build something of quality around Kemba Walker, they don't really have any financial flexibility whatsoever until 2 more years, when players like Dwight Howard, Marvin Williams, Cody Zeller are finally off the books, and then they'll be able to move some pieces around, which is going to be extremely frustrating if you're a Charlotte Hornets fan, because more than likely they're not going to be able to add anything of quality around Kemba Walker, which again is going to be extremely important. I will explain later on. But with that being said, let's move on to this depth chart, because now that Nicolas Batum is gone, you clearly see why I don't think this team is going to be as good as I have them ranked, but it is what it is. So at the point guard position, obviously we have the all-star Kemba Walker. At the 2, we have Jeremy Lamb, who should be a bench player, but more than likely is going to start just because his backups are rookies, so you have that. At the 3, we have Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. At the power forward position, Marvin Williams, and then rounding it up with our big man, Dwight Howard. Coming off the bench, we have Michael Carter-Williams, Cody Zeller, Frank Kaminsky, and our 2 rookies in Malik Monk and Dwayne Bacon. Now, I'm pretty sure, as you clearly can see from this roster, it's definitely suspect. And again, this right here just provides evidence of how valuable of a player Nicolas Batum really is. Now, another thing that really concerns me about this roster is the lack of spacing. Dwight Howard, regardless of how many hours he claims he works on his jump shot, will never be labeled as a threat when it comes to his face-up game. And then Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is such a terrible shooter that he refuses to shoot threes as if it's 1987. Amazing to me. So looking at this roster, regardless of how great of a defensive team they potentially can be, I have very little hope for this team. Sure, you have some pick and roll action here and there with Dwight Howard and Kemba Walker, but again, Dwight Howard suffered some injuries and there's still going to be a massive concern when it comes to spacing. And to be honest with you all, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, but this team now is so bad, especially with the lack of spacing, and you really don't necessarily know how long it's going to take Nicolas Batum to come back. I would honestly just consider trading Kemba Walker, like right now, like right now. And because of this, that's the reason why he's a spotlight player of the day, so I can explain to you why I believe that should happen. Kemba Walker is a 6'1" point guard who spent the last 6 years playing for the Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats, and last year he came off of his best season yet. Selected for his first All-Star appearance, averaging the most points throughout his career, and his shooting efficiency has gone through the roof, which I applaud him for, because for a good chunk of his career, that was by far the biggest concern. Now when it comes to Kemba Walker, personally, I'm not the biggest fan, but with that being said, I'm definitely not going to deny his talents whatsoever. When it comes to point guards in the NBA, outside of the top 3 or 4 point guards in the league, the skill gap between the 5th best point guard and like the 10th best point guard, in my opinion, really isn't that wide at all. In the half-court setting, Kemba Walker is surprisingly extremely tactical. He has a lot of patience in the half-court setting, especially coming off of pick and rolls. I like the fact that he can finish with a floater around the rim, and he has a nice little step-back game that is fun to watch, and it killed the Atlanta Hawks like 2 times, and I watched it pretty consistently. And also, who can forget about the crossovers? Kemba Walker has a smooth crossover game. Like, the handles is something nice on Kemba Walker. Again, it's not like Kyrie level handles, but it's pretty tight. Like, it's real nice, and he's real slick with it. So I like that. And also his hesitation game, I peeped that out. I peeped that out too. That hezzy game is pretty nice. So in my opinion, Kemba Walker is pretty good. 20-point scorer, nice handles, finish around the rim, knock down the 3. And he's making $12 million a year. Now, if it comes across as if I'm trying to sell Kemba Walker to you, that's because that's exactly what I'm trying to do. For those out there who are unaware, Kemba Walker is only under contract for the next 2 seasons, and in both years he's making $12 million a year. Now, the reason why I personally believe that the Charlotte Hornets should trade Kemba Walker, and I know this is going to be a hard pill to swallow, but hear me out. This is an organization that should be looking veterans to combine with the talents of their 27-year-old All-Star, not necessarily still hoping that the ping pong balls land in their favor. So if you're the Charlotte Hornets, I don't necessarily know if that's the best environment for a 27-year-old veteran who is vastly underpaid and is 2 years from an expiring contract. So if you're Charlotte and you're still hoping to rebuild, you definitely need to move whatever assets that you possibly can. And the cherry on top of all of this, and what really is pushing me to the edge of saying trade Kemba Walker, is the fact that Nicolas Batum just went down. And I highly doubt that he's going to be out just for 8 weeks. I think it's going to be 12 weeks, maybe even longer. But if we get to around January, February, and Nicolas Batum is still out, or even if he gets rushed back on the court and he's just not the same player that he once was, then basically this entire season is a wash. And why would you want to hold on to Kemba Walker that long before you actually trade him? Because we saw what little the Indiana Pacers received for finally pulling the trigger on Paul George. So with that being said, just trade him. You already have 2 really good players in Monk and Bacon, and so if you can get another young player and possibly another draft pick, then why not pull the trigger? Now, if I were the Charlotte Hornets, I would call the Orlando Magic and get Elfrid Payton, Jonathan Isaac, and a 2018 draft pick. More than likely, Orlando is at least going to put top 3 protections on it, but that's what I would do. And in return, just give them Kemba Walker. But going back to the Charlotte Hornets, it's definitely something you have to at least sit back and consider, especially because of the situation that you're now in, where this entire season could just be a wash because Nicolas Batum is suffering injuries. Now, with all that being said, let's move forward with our Twitter question of the day. Shout out to my man Tyrone Gibson. He asked, I feel as if the Hornets are going to embrace a rebuild. It would have to come with a draft pick / proven young player. Do you think Malik Monk is the guy that they'd be building around, or is he a good number 2 option? Now, when it comes to Malik Monk, I actually like him. He's a 6'3" guard who can handle the ball a little bit, but his best attribute is his ability to shoot the ball. And for a shooter, he's pretty quick and light on his feet. And shout out to my man Malik Monk, because I see with the bungees as well. He got some hops, and I like that as well. Now, with that being said, I also like Bacon, which is the huge reason why I just feel like Charlotte should just rebuild, because they got 2 really good guards in this last draft class. So if you can have a backcourt with Monk and Bacon moving forward, and then have Jonathan Isaac either at the 3 or the 4, and then go in this next draft class and potentially have 2 top 15 picks, how is that not a great start to a rebuild? Like, why would you not, if you're a Charlotte Hornets fan, why would you not want that? So in my opinion, if you're the Charlotte Hornets, you have a lot of young talent at the guard position that you might as well just go all in on, and then go out there and get a young forward and just rebuild. Like, in my opinion, I just feel like that's what they should do. But with all that being said, people, let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below. Tell me if you think the Charlotte Hornets should actually pull the trigger on Kemba Walker, which, let's just be clear, they should trade Kemba Walker. I think it's pretty obvious at this point. Also, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, thumbs up, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.